bias. We haven't been very loud about, specifically here, the question is about BLM, the BLM movement. We haven't been very loud about it, I guess because we see ourselves as a more technical group, and we haven't gone much into world politics so far. We do have, however, a very clear position on how we want people. I hope you see the page I popped up. I'll make it a bit bigger. We do have a very strong commitment to making everybody feel welcome in the project. With different policies we have a diversity statement, we have a code of conduct. So we do really want everybody, no matter how they identify themselves and how they're perceived by others, feel welcome in our community, and really to start engaging with the project more and more. I do think that at least what I see in Europe is that the bias is not only in QGIS, but it's in general in the IT world, where we do have a stronger percentage of male population doing IT jobs, and it's, to me, I really do not like it. I run a company. I try to have as many women teams as possible, or as many diverse, but it's really hard. Even like in Switzerland, it's really hard for us in the company to find non-white male people to hire, and yeah. But I think that, and I'd like to hear the other voices as well. I think that our community is very welcoming, and we, as far as I can recall, we never really had any cases of people complaining about not being inclusive or not being welcoming. But definitely, yeah, we could do more in trying to build up more kind of a grassroots programs to get more diverse developers into the core team, because again, I'd like to point out that this bias, or this thematic, or it's largely visible in the development team, which is a very visible team because they are doing the amazing job of making QGIS the great tool it is, but the community behind it is way more diverse than the core developer team. So I think it's more actually a programmer thingy than a QGIS thingy. Yeah. And just to point everybody to the statements that I was showing, you can find them on the website on Get Involved, and then on the I lost it. Get back. I prepared it before, so it's getting governance, project organization, get involved, project organization, and then we have the different the diversity statement, our code of conduct, and since this spring as well, we do have an environmental policy which was voted at the last AGM. So really happy that we try to do what we can. We try to push the project forward in a technical way, but we do also try to push it forward to be the most, the nicest place to be as a community member. Hope that's
okay, thank you. I should apologize. We started the thing and I thought we were streaming, but we actually cut off the first few minutes because I had forgotten to, or missed a button that I had to press. So just if you joined in and into the mid-conversation, the question was about diversity in QGIS, which you probably picked up from Marco's chat there. Does anybody want to add anything to that, or? Okay, I think we can move on. I think we should just, again, just underline, we are welcoming everybody from every community, and we always have been, I think. And if you feel unwelcome, contact us. We'll see what we can do to make you feel more welcome. But I think, like Marcus said, it's never really been the case that anybody came to us and said, oh, we feel like we're being discriminated against. Okay, so the next question is from Wendy in Indonesia, and she would like to suggest a feature enhancement to QGIS, which is that we put simplification on the digitizing menu and put some some processing in vector editing in single layers such as split, clip, difference, and dissolve, etc. Thank you. So maybe you can pull up your screen there, Marco, with QGIS, and we could just make it clear for people what she's referring to there. And then from around the table, maybe somebody's got some responses for her. That's the sound of Marco furiously getting QGIS started.
Is that the silence you were hearing? Yeah, should see QGIS.
I see you have the selection toolbar that won't go away thing that's been plaguing me, that it always sits on its own little row at the bottom there. Totally separate from Wendy's question. So Wendy's asking, why can't we have simplification on the digitizing toolbars? Maybe you can make it just a quick memory layer or something and just show the digitizing toolbar. Okay, you're super prepared for this.
No, I just took one of my last projects I'm working, my test project that I always use for. So toolbars, view, toolbars.
Oh, we only see your main QGIS window, not any other pop-up window. So maybe you want to share your whole screen and not just the window.
I have an immense screen. If I share everything, you will not see anything, I guess. Let me try. Stop sharing.
Let's see the immenseness.
Yeah, it's just a 4K screen. So.
While you're putting it up there, I mean, this is basically, it's a feature request, right? So what is our standard response to a feature request?
Well, that's very good. Thank you for the hint. Maybe to go one step back and remember people how QGIS works in the development. It's basically there are two ways to get things done in QGIS. So when you're missing something, the one way is, if you can, you do it yourself. You build it, you write the code, you write the tests, you maybe even before, if it's a big change, you go and discuss with the community and ask them, what do you think? I'm considering building this kind of thing. It would change the behavior of QGIS in this and that way. And for this, we have what is called a QAP process. It's a GitHub repository where you can write out your proposal, and then where the community at large will discuss, yeah, great proposal, but did you think about that detail or this other detail? And it really helps you out making your proposal much better and making you actually have a clearer idea what you actually want to build, because by explaining to other people what you want, you'll actually make yourself clearer. Once you're done with this and the community says, yeah, that's a great idea, go ahead, you build it. And this is a very big understatement because it requires technical knowledge, but I guess if you're up to it, it's great. We're always looking for new developers, so really happy if anybody considers starting building something, and we keep on seeing new developers coming in through this road where they want to build something small first because it bugs them, and then eventually they start into doing more and more. And once it's built with tests and everything, you will have you create a pull request on the QGIS master repository. And some of the core committers like Alessandro or Matthias or Nayal will come and will give you feedback and tell you, yeah, maybe. And here we are talking about real deep technical level feedback, where they'll tell you why you're not using const in front of a variable name, or that kind of things. And you're like, oh, because I forgot it, or you have a good reason what you're doing, and you have a discussion there as well at a very technical level, where you usually also get to learn a lot more of how the QGIS code base works itself. Once everybody's happy, your feature gets merged, and it's going to be in the next QGIS release. And from there moment on, it's going to be in every release. Here, obviously, very important to say that the features that we put into QGIS master itself need to be features that are useful for everybody. So we're not going to put a company-specific logic within QGIS, because QGIS is a product that needs to be for everybody. So it's very important here to decide, is QGIS core the place I want this feature to be, or do I want to build a plugin? And that's actually, there are 3 ways then to get things done. You can write a plugin that enhances QGIS, has a lower, I'd say personally, being a Python developer as well, the entry bar is a bit lower for building a plugin than to building something in core. And the thing about the plugin is that it's your responsibility and you are building it. So there is the whole process that I mentioned before about having a QAP to discuss with the community. The whole pull request process does not really apply here, because you're building your own tool that extends QGIS. The only thing that happens here is that if you want to publish your plugin on the plugin page of QGIS, is that we have a security screening before your plugin is published. So you publish your plugin, and here we have a team of dedicated people that goes over the plugin and checks if your plugin is not doing bizarre things like going and deleting your root, or going and sniffing things around. So it's not about technical capability. It's not about how you wrote your plugin. It's really about, is your plugin safe to be published? But once it's published, people can install it and they can have your plugin do things. Now, both these ways imply that you know how to code, or you have somebody in your team that knows how to code. And here is where what before I mentioned, there are 2 ways to get things done. The one way is do it yourself. The other way is sponsor somebody to do it, or hire somebody to do it. And here, if you go on the QGIS website, there are plenty of companies that's actually, their business model is exactly doing this, building things for others into QGIS and make it available to everybody. So this is a great way to actually support companies that put a lot of work in there. Very often, and I think here Alessandro can agree, he does a lot of things that are paid for, and he does double the amount of things that are not paid for, just because he thinks, oh, we could do it a bit better, and there's so much that needs to be done in QGIS itself. So there is a lot of volunteer work happening, and very often a volunteer is also a person that can do work for hire. So if you don't have the technical capability to make QGIS, the code itself better, then go out on the website and find the people, the companies that do offer services, and hire them to do the work for you. And that is the other way to get things done in QGIS. Now, if
sometimes you can also just ask, like she's doing, right, and people are kind and make things. So we shouldn't rule that out as a possibility. It's just like not the most likely way to get your feature added to QGIS, right?
It's let's say the other two, the ways I mentioned were the ways to make sure that it happens. Obviously, you can just ask, and maybe you're really lucky, or you're just a little bit lucky, because it happens very often that somebody will think it's an interesting idea and it will just build it. The other two ways, doing it yourself or getting somebody to do it for you, are the way to ensure that it gets done. Yeah, you cannot expect that somebody will do the work for free for you. That's what I meant.
Let's can we talk a little bit about the question itself? So, what is the use case of simplification in the digitizing menu? Can you, because you didn't really explain. So, I'm digitizing a line. I put lots of vertices in, and at the same time, I want to simplify it. Or what? How did you understand this question? Maybe others in the panel can also have some thoughts on that.
Personally, I couldn't really figure out what the use case was, because when you're digitizing yourself, you're actually putting already in the points. When I was reading it, I was wondering if the question was more about smoothing, maybe, like simplify in the sense that it looks smoother. But I don't know why you would put more points in to then have an algorithm delete them.
Anybody else on the panel have any ideas about how you would use that?
Yes. Regarding this specific issue, I would go back to what Marcus said about before developing something or before a feature request. It's really good to discuss it on the user list or developers list, or even on GitHub. Marco, if you go to GitHub, since you are displaying, we have a lot of feature requests. So in this specific case, we don't know exactly what the user wants, how is the specific user case, and that's why in our issues in the GitHub, we have a lot of issues called feature requests. Maybe Marco can select just or
any favorite one?
Anyone. So with some discussion, for example.
Oh, no, this one has no discussion because it was done 2 hours ago. So here, 16.
Your screen is basically too small to read anything.
Yeah, let me just share. That's what I was mentioning before.
Yeah. Or just full screen your browser and just push the font up to like 200%, and then we'll be able to see it.
But I think this is, as any other example, it's very good, because before developing a new feature, we really need to discuss it. What is the user case for the feature? How this should be accomplished? What is the relation with this feature with other features people are requesting, and so on. So
sorry, my browser is going crazy. Sorry.
Well, but that was just to add something to Marcus, what Marco already said. But
maybe something else is like just the social engineering side of things to mention is that, for example, if you're interested in the digitizing capabilities of QGIS, it's worthwhile getting looking in the mailing list and things and seeing who's actually been working on that, and maybe reaching out to that person and chatting to them about your idea. I think Martin did a lot. Martin Dubiash did a lot of the digitizing tools. So it's always good to maybe discover who that person is, and usually, I mean, if it's a reasonable thing you want to discuss, usually somebody won't mind to just answer an email or have a quick chat with you on a voice chat or something like that, just to talk about your idea if it's not going to take up a lot of their time. So, and you might be able to then properly express what you want to that person and get them to, get them enthusiastic about your idea and to go and build things for you.
Yeah, and even Marco, if you deselect a feature request, but even inside feature requests, if you write down digitizing, we'll have lots of feature requests related to digitizing. So so it's better to start looking at what other people are asking about digitizing, about usability, features related to digitizing, and so on. And maybe instead of starting a new feature request, maybe adding something to a feature request already started by another user. So we have a very large pool of feature requests, and it would be very nice if users help us to improve these requests, so it will be easier to implement and to incorporate these features in the code.
Good.
So maybe in general, since we are having a look at QGIS at GitHub, so it's a really central point for us to get feedback from everybody around. So it's really important that when you have issues, you go here and have a look around before reporting new things. Like you can go to the issues page on GitHub, and here you can have a look at the open issues, and probably or there might be already an issue there for whatever your problem is. And if you don't find anything, but please do search first. And let's say we are looking into something that has a problem with raster symbology. And you see, okay, there is something with my raster symbology, and it looks like there is a bug which is reported. Let's go and have a look. It seems like it's being discussed a lot as well. And here you see Luigi made a nice report saying, okay, what's the problem? How can I reproduce it? And here for this thing, you get a template when you're creating a new issue report. And then he went further, he explained what version there are, and then we have Alessandro that said, yay, for him it already works on the master version, and then there is a start of discussion, what could it be, and maybe it's a duplicated of something else. So you see there is a discussion going on about the problem, and here you have two core developers. Then we have Giovanni, which is basically the master of our bug queue discussing. So you really have people that have a lot of insight into the project, giving feedback on the issue, and hopefully it turns into one of those closed one where finally they end up with some code that fixes an issue, or it gets decided that the issue maybe is not in QGIS itself, and we cannot do anything about it because that happens sometimes because of all the dependencies. So a really important place to go on when you have an issue.
Okay, maybe we can move on to the next question, if that's okay, unless anyone has anything more to add. The next question is probably good for Ale to jump in and answer, because it's a QGIS server question, and maybe it's a bit technical for us to answer here, but let's give it a go. Ale, Alessandro, you had a chance to look at it before. I'll just read it out for everyone's benefit. So the question is Vicente Medina, and he says, I'm a QGIS server user. Great. Welcome to the club. We publish, that's what I said, not he said. We publish mainly PostGIS layers, and some of our PostGIS layers are database views, which are dynamically created for the user connecting to PostgreSQL. Hence, in QGIS Server, it would be great to be able to change the connection user dynamically to provide the proper layer, adapting to the user accessing the service, i.e. in WMS. So I guess the use case for that is you connect this Joe, and Joe can only see polygon 1, 2, and 3 in a data set. So his view of the WMS service shows only those 3 polygons. Hence, in QGIS Server, it would be great to be able to change the connection user dynamically. Did I read that already? To provide the proper layer adapted to the user accessing the server. In the QGIS Server plugins examples, there's an example of how to add a security layer to the connection. Access control filters. Same idea. It would be great to update the Postgres connection. PostgreSQL admits this feature through the set role query. Hence, it is just a matter of invoking this command in the connection client of the layer. In fact, this could be done using the QGIS Postgres provider class, invoking the pgexec_nr method. So, sorry, we're getting very technical here. The problem is that this method is only available to C++ plugins. The class is not published in the Python library. The Python folder, and he gives a path there, lists all the Python published classes. Hence, perhaps it is just a matter of adding the QGIS Postgres provider to the list. Being able to open a connection client for all the available layers of the table of contents probably will result in some amazing features. Thank you very much, Vicent. So Ali, maybe you could start just by sort of, in simpler terms, explaining a little bit what Vicent is after, and then if you've got some comments on the technical.
Yeah, okay. So, well, the short answer, this is not possible and will never be possible. The long answer is that it depends on how the internals of QGIS are implemented. So the data provider, and we are talking about PostGIS here, PostgreSQL data provider, they are implemented as an independent shared objects that are loaded at runtime. So we call them plugins, but they are completely different from the plugins in Python that you are usually using. But they are technically kind of plugins because they are independent, dynamically linked libraries that they are loaded at runtime. So they are not exposed in any library. They are not available and accessible from any library from Python or even from C++ when you use QGIS as a library, the QGIS core library, for example, or the server library as well. So this is not possible, and I don't even think it's a good idea, because there's another technical problem. Even if we would expose the plugins to the library, you would be modifying the connection directly, so the connection to the database. But that connection is shared because we have a connection pool, and we connect to the same database using the connection pool. So what could happen in this situation is that you could set a role, and then another incoming request is coming into the server, and the connection is using the role that you've set before. So that wouldn't work well, because you could have a problem, a kind of race condition, even if we are not talking about threads, but we are talking about different requests in different point in time. So I don't think this is actually not only possible, but also a good idea. What you can do here is, and you already probably tried that, you can use the access control, input-output plugin filters to develop your own logic and to change dynamically based on the user that is connected to your service. You can change dynamically the filters that are applied in different ways. At the provider level, you can set a filter substring, so it's a piece of SQL-like filter that you can add on top of the layer to select the features that you want to show to the user. But the access control filter allows much more great control over what you serve. So you can set a spatial filter on the features. You can define which attributes are returned from, say, a get feature info response or an WFS get feature response. So I think that the current filter infrastructure for access control is quite good. So you can do almost whatever you want based on the incoming request. It's up to you how to implement it, because there are many examples available, and there are also examples in the test infrastructure of QGIS that you can have a look to. But it's up to you how to pass this information to the server. So there are several ways. It depends typically on the kind of authentication and authorization scheme that is passed, usually as a query string parameter or as a HTTP header in case of, let's say, OAuth or HTTP basic authentication. So this is all possible already, but you need to implement it yourself. And you follow the examples about the QGIS server input-output filters. Look for access control filters. That's the keyword.
Thank you, Ale. It's great to have the answer straight from the expert's mouth for these things. Great. So then the next question was from Simon, or Simon, I'm not sure. And he said, thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. And he wants to ask about performance of Geopackage files. And he says, let's say you're storing 5 to 40 gigabytes of data in a single table in a Geopackage file. Think of converted lines from CAD drawings or spanning over an area of Germany. Each drawing will have the boundary box in the size of a city. He says the pro for this is navigating in that data with QGIS is extremely fast. Zooming out will slow the loading process, of course, but looking into distinct city-sized parts is very usable. I think that spatial indexing is key here. He says the cons for this is that using the attribute table is very slow. For example, opening, sorting, deleting columns, counting features, etc. Filtering the data, excluding a large part with something like name not in A, B, or C will not speed things up. So his question is, does QGIS use indexing for table columns other than geometries like features, for features like filter functionality? Will QGIS use indexes created via plain SQL in the DB Manager? And then, so he's got actually several parts to his question. The second one is, how does the attribute table work? Will QGIS fetch all the features and show them afterwards, or does QGIS use different queries for smaller data chunks? So he wants to know if it's like using a paging system. For example, loading the first 100 entries is very fast in Database Manager, but after waiting time to open the attribute table is much longer. Will QGIS handle data differently if the attribute table when queried from a Postgres or PostGIS environment? Then his third question is, how would you handle such data? Is there something different? Is there a different strategy? And number 4, could you give some insights as to why QGIS handles the way it does? And number 5, are there plans in the future which are related to the topic? Okay, there's a whole bunch of different things that are being raised there. Maybe we could just hear a little bit in general terms from Ale, maybe again, or Marco. What is the strategy that QGIS uses to fetch data into the attribute table? I guess that's probably a good place to start. Does it use a paging system, or is it loading it all in one go?
I think I can take that. So this is the real pain point in QGIS, the attribute table. So well, the strategy is now to fetch all data. So this is why this is really slow, and it's, I would say, completely unusable when you have large amount of data. There is a kind of timer that will pop up with a progress bar if the fetching will take too long. But the fact is that we have now kind of a thread we can use to download the features. And we need to show, we have now, like I would say, continuous fetching. So we can show the first batch of features, then go to the next batch and so on. This is not implemented. There have been over the years different tries to make it better, but they all stopped because it's a very, very complex matter. The attribute table is currently, I think that all the developers agree on this, is our main pain point, because it's a huge spaghetti code, I would say. So there are a lot of interleaved calls and signals and slots that are connected to different parts of the code. and it's really, really very difficult to work on that. This is one of the, well, I talked with other developers many times about how we could improve that, but the problem is that this is not something that we could do, that first, a single developer could do. Probably we need more than one. And it would require a huge amount of time. And so this is not something that we can do in our spare or volunteer time. We should really think about how to completely refactor the attribute table, because the attribute table has been patched and patched over the years a lot of times. So there's probably no one that can understand how it really works, and it is really a huge amount of code. So this is a real problem. We are well aware of that. I'm not talking about the indexing, that's but I'm just talking about the attribute table and the display of data and the filtering of data and sorting of data and all that stuff. So that part is really a problem that I think that it also shows, I don't want to appear too pessimistic here, but I think that it shows also kind of limits that an open source shared development project has, because when the code base grows so big and so complicated, we need a coordinated effort to fix this problem. So it's not something that a single developer could take. It's something that a team should handle. And so it's a little bit difficult. So I think that there is hope, of course. We can try to make it better, but we are kind of delaying this year after year, and the problem just grows bigger. And so I don't really know what to do here. Maybe try to make a crowdfunding thing, but it's difficult because crowdfunding works well for new features and doesn't work so well for refactoring, that it doesn't really add new fancy features like 3D or like the point clouds or that kind of things. So I don't know if you have any idea.
I do have an idea here. Maybe we could, as we have already done in the past, is to, sorry for the background noise, is to use actually the grant proposals, and what we've done before is to say that the grant proposal can be only tied to a certain team, and we did that for infrastructure. What we did in the last grant proposal is say, okay, this year's grant proposal is only for proposals that are connected to making QGIS infrastructure run smoother. Maybe a proposal could be to say, well, next year's grant proposal rounds is only going to be to things that are related to the attribute table. So maybe could be an idea worth exploring, and say, since, as you say, it's a big pain point for many people, and it's something that most developer wants to keep their finger off because it's really a lot of code, and that could probably be an interesting way to have a look at things. For if there are listeners that don't know what the grant proposal is, it's basically QGIS.org has as a membership system. You can become a sustaining member, either as an if you are, like, there are different sizes of sustaining membership. Maybe Tim, you can pull up the list while I'll talk. And with this membership, you pay a fee per year, and this money goes to the QGIS.org association, and the association itself manages this money for infrastructure, for paying all the infrastructure that we need to run. Remember that our servers are serving something in the range of 40 terabytes of co-working space. Something for 40 terabytes per month behind content delivery network. So we do serve a lot there, and we do have plenty of infrastructure that we need to be able to run the website, all the automated testing, all the CI that we are doing, all the packaging and all those kind of things. And this is all paid out of the membership levels. Here you can see that the smallest membership is 500 euros, or starts at 500 euros, and usually is for small companies or smaller cities. And then we have medium, large, and we are still looking for, if I'm not wrong, we are still looking for a flagship member. We do have a couple of large members, but we do not have it. Yes, great. Thank you. We do not have a flagship member yet, so if any potential flagship member out there is listening, that spot could be yours, and it comes with lifelong gratitude from all developers. But obviously, every single small amount helps. And as I was saying, how I came in here, basically, this money, it's also money that goes into the grant proposal program. And the grant proposal program is a place where people suggest new features or bug fixes, and then they get voted by the community, and the accepted ones. So we try to accept all possible ones up to filling up the budget that we have per year. And the accepted ones then get implemented, and we get plenty of super cool things. We use it very often for, as Alessandro said before, for less sexy things, because it is much easier for a company to sell a new feature. It is much harder to sell a refactoring, and that is why we have this program as well. And Tim is looking for the results of the 2020. There we go. No, the other way. Yeah. So here, for example, we see the results of the vote from the 2020. So the things that are being done currently under the grant proposal. And this year's, it was, as I mentioned before, tied to infrastructure only, so no new feature. And we can see here that we have plenty of improvements, quality assurance, or add support DB manager things into the browser, CI's work, evaluation for future technologies. So you see plenty of things that are really hard to sell for a company, because they are not like lighthouse projects, and that's what we try to solve with the with the grant proposal program. So maybe it's something worth discussing in the PSC if we have the next grant proposal coming up early 2021. So I think it could be a good time to discuss that.
Yeah, Marco, I think it's a good idea. The problem, I thought about the grant proposals too, but I think that this kind of development is too big for that, because it would suck up all the budget, I think. But maybe I'm wrong, and there's someone much faster than me.
Yeah, we need like 200,000 something specifically for this one thing, or.
Yeah, well, I have no idea really.
Yeah, but I'm just picking a number out the air.
I think that Niall talked about 2 full weeks. So, well, I don't know. Maybe he's optimistic, I think. Anyway, I think it's much more than that. But if you want to refactor it completely, to make it threaded, so you have thread downloading the features and you have a progressive show all the features, so they are shown as during the download. I think that's the way it should work.
Can we talk a little bit? There was a lot of sub questions, and we probably won't have time to go into them all. But maybe just as a general strategy, how do you guys deal with large data sets at the moment, and when you need to work in the attribute table? Have you got any tips and tricks?
Well, I got to tips and tricks. Basically, you could add the filter on the data source. Yeah, so you go to the layer properties, source, and do query builder, and just select a subset of your data that uses filtering and index database side, because you're on Geopackage, I see. But for me, I'm using PostgreSQL. So if I have like 1 million rows or 4 million rows, and I need to only work on something that is like 100,000 rows or something, and that I can filter it database side and open the attribute table, only those 100,000 rows. And that's a trick that I'm using for very large datasets. And it wasn't mentioned here, but most of you already know it. But some of the viewers maybe don't know it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, use Postgres for real work, basically. We had lots of discussions.
Unless, sorry, that would also be my suggestion, unless there is a real reason, like having to have the data offline, then I guess that amount of data makes more sense in a Postgres database, yeah.
Even if you have it offline, use Postgres. I think I even ran Postgres on my tablet. I mean, it can run everywhere. So
yeah, it's a bit more a convoluted thing.
Yeah,
in that case.
It is. But if you've got the billions of rows of records, I think the effort spent in getting Postgres running is probably worth it for the performance that you get. Okay, maybe unless there's more comments on that, but maybe we can move on to the next question. So this one's from David Errol, and he says it's a technical question about porting of the QGIS Postgres provider to Python. I think this is kind of covered in what we were talking about just now anyway, but I'll quickly read and maybe you've got any additional comments, Alessandro. I'm David Errol, QGIS developer working for BGO. I have developed several plugins for QGIS. Main one is GIS Water. Both our QGIS projects and plugin make extensive use of PostGIS databases. We currently connect to PostGIS using PyPG2 Python library. At this point, we are considering and would like to use the QGIS Postgres provider in our projects to get better performance with our database connection, but we realize this has not been ported to Python yet. Can I ask you why not? And are there any plans to have it ported in the future? Thanks. And then he gives some links to his projects, which we can share in the notes afterwards. So any thoughts on that? I think it's pretty much the same response as you gave earlier, isn't it?
Yes, pretty much the same. What I can say that we have been working on a new API that would work transparently with all the database the data providers. So it's now implemented for PostGIS, for SQLite and Geopackage and Microsoft SQL. I don't think Oracle is implemented yet. I can't remember. Anyway, so but the main providers, data providers, now expose this new API that we called QGIS Data Provider Connection API, and through this API, you can send queries by calling execute SQL method of that API, and that is supposed to work transparently across the providers that support this new API. So this is the recommended way to interact with the data provider in a transparent way. So it's a level of abstraction on top of the data provider. But the main answer is the same that I gave before. So that's not possible, and it will never be possible because we do not want to expose the data providers internals to the public API of QGIS. What we can do is write an abstraction layer that allow the vector layers basically to access to certain functions of the data providers. And that's exactly what we've been doing with these new connections API. Something to keep in mind, and that's exposed to Python, of course. What's important to keep in mind is that that API is not implemented using a cursor, so an iterator. And it's based on the internal implementation of the data provider themselves. So it's probably not ideal to retrieve a huge amount of data. So if you need to work with a huge amount of data, you just use the QGIS vector layer API directly to retrieve the data, because that API is also available for a spatial layer, so for geometry-less layers, if you want to use a table that has no spatial features in it.
Thank you. And I guess that API, that's been part of your work to move functionality that was in the DB Manager into the browser, right?
Yeah, exactly. That API was started a kind of 2 or 3 years ago, and the API is probably complete. The implementation in DB Manager is not, so we are using this API in small pieces here and there, but we are using this API in the core because we have been moving many functionalities of DB Manager into core, especially into the browser. So you can now create new fields, delete fields, and the fields are also exposed directly in the browser tree with the new version of QGIS. And this is all using the new API. So the idea is that if someone comes with a new data provider, they just implement this API and it will be automatically available in the layer tree inside QGIS, and everywhere we will be using this API. So it's a layer of abstraction on top of the data provider, basically.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Alessandro. Okay, so we can move on to the next question, I think. The next question is from Anita Grazer, world-famous QGIS author, PSC member, Sol Katz Award winner, and general awesome QGIS advocate. And I know she's lying at home sick in bed with a flu or a cold at the moment, so I hope you're feeling better soon, Anita. So she asks, can we have a 3D sample data set to showcase QGIS's new 3D capabilities? So I guess the short answer could be yes, right? But yes. Maybe I thought it would be good to maybe just unpack a little bit about what should go into that data set, and that would also be a bit interesting for people to understand what kind of data sets QGIS can work with in 3D. So maybe you want to jump in there, Marco, first?
Yeah, just quickly, for the moment, maybe for people that do not know, Martin, just the lead developer on the 3D part, has a very nice list of available data sets that can be used. I'm going to share quickly the link. That's the one. There we go. Share. Now I share the whole screen now. It has a way. I need to share an application, and this is much. You can probably read much better now. So on his on GitHub, wonder-sk 3D-spatial-data is where he has compiled a list of very interesting 3D data sources that can be used within QGIS. So probably we could choose something out of here and put it in our own sample data sets page. The question here would be much more, what do we want to put there? Do we want to put city models? Do we want to put more terrain models? Here it's a bit a bigger discussion. It's more, what do we want to have in that data set? As Tim said already, obviously the answer is yes, we can have one of these data sets. Ideally, it would come also like all the other data sets with a pre-configured project so that people can just start it up and have a look. here, I guess the question is really only what do we want to publish, and here, I guess the feedback from the community would be the best way to get that kind of information, because I guess everybody does. I know what I use 3D for. It's basically displaying mountains and having a look at where I'm going to go ski down. But I guess that's a very mundane way to use QGIS, and there are probably people that are doing much more amazing and useful things than planning my Saturdays and Sundays in the snow. Yeah, so I guess ideally here we would ask the community what would they welcome as a demo data set. I don't know, maybe the other people have Tudor, go ahead. Or was it Tudor that started?
No, I was about to say
okay, sorry, Tudor.
You're welcome to talk as well, but I was about to say that I've been digitizing my small holding where I live, and I did the buildings and the infrastructure in it in 3D. And one day George is going to come and visit me, and we're going to make a 3D terrain model with his drone. And I'd be happy to share that as a sample data, maybe just move to a different location so not everyone's arriving at my house the next day. But I think there are other types of 3D data sets that kind of like the mesh stuff, and it's particularly the time-based mesh, which would be interesting to have sample data sets. And it would be maybe interesting to try to find one scene where we had both, all the types represented in one scene. So you could play around with buildings and mesh and temporal mesh and everything. And terrain.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to, I haven't got, like, in my exploration of mesh, I don't know how to make a temporal mesh data sets easily in QGIS, or if it's even possible.
I could ask the Swiss Meteorological Agency if they can share one weather, like if they can give something, a specific, I don't know, a week of a weather forecast someone back to publish.
It would be nice to have them all, maybe along with that have like a terrestrial scene that goes with it, so you can sort of...
there is. That's why I mentioned, because I know there is already terrain models, and there is already even in the whole city of Zurich has all their city 3D model is open. It's in the page by Martin already, so maybe it would be a way to go if we don't find like everything from somewhere else.
So I think it would be a great project to have, and maybe this is a great place where somebody who's not a developer could contribute and make a really nice impact on the project. So any volunteers out there, just write to volunteers@qgis.org. That doesn't exist, but okay, maybe something.
Maybe we should do that.
Contact us.
Tim, you can also mention Raymond, because Raymond was trying to create a bridge between Blender and QGIS to have 3D models.
And that you know that there is already the 3D export in Blender. Was he trying to do it in both directions, or?
Yeah, I was expecting to hear Raymond here, but maybe we can make it on another session.
He is at the Blender conference.
No, he said it's only starting at 6. He's actually listening. So Raymond, feel free to come and jump into the call and tell us your thoughts if you want to. Maybe we'll move on, and then if he comes, we can circle back to that.
Maybe just one quick note on something you said, Tim, about non-developers. Remember, everybody out there, so QGIS, yes, has a core developer team, but it's way more than that. There is so much other things that don't require, actually the faces you see here, there is one person that spends most of his time writing C++ code, and that's Alessandro, but everybody else here spends a lot of time doing plenty of things around QGIS, which are documenting, translating, writing Python plugins. updating the website, translating the website. So there is so much more than sorry, not Alessandro, than just coding. The QGIS project is not only the C++ part, that the desktop thing that you see. There is so much more around it that doesn't require programming skills, and that we can help. We can use a lot of help there because it's a lot. Imagine QGIS, I think it's currently translated into 36 languages or something. I haven't been on Transifex lately. And the website is in, I think, 13 languages or so. It's a lot of work to keep all that up to date. So the more people we have that can help there, the better the whole experience gets for users.
Yeah, and if you just find something you enjoy doing anyway and come and like do it for QGIS rather than just for yourself, that's a good way to get involved. All right, maybe I'll jump over to Aloisio JB Cotta. I apologize if I didn't say your name very well. He asks, Dear Stream Leader Tim Sutton and Marco Bernasocchi, first I would like to congratulate you for the initiative. I'm a beginner in using QGIS. My use is restricted to the production of maps and small manipulation of shapefiles. I am interested in learning more about geoprocessing to work with digital elevation models, DEMS, for delimiting water reservoirs in river channels, to assess flooded areas, dam allocation, and volume of the reservoir or dam. I would like an introduction on the correction of satellite images to be presented, as well as a presentation of the tools for delimiting reservoirs. My area of interest is the São Mateus ES river basin in Brazil. I add a shapefile of the contour in the basin and its rivers in order to be located. And he gives the Dropbox links to his data. And he says, best regards, Aloisio. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to play with his data. I'm
going to call home for help.
Okay.
No, I haven't had the chance yesterday to.
Maybe we probably won't have time to pull up the data. Maybe we do a separate session where we could take his actual problem, and I'd invite Hans van der Kwast. I think would be the best person to have in the room. Hans van der Kwast is together with Kurt Menke, I guess, the expert on QGIS for hydrology, hydrological applications. They've written an excellent book on that. And so what I think, Aloisio, is I will invite them for a separate session, and maybe next Quack Friday, or just a separate YouTube stream that we can do. And we'll maybe take your problem if we can, if there's enough data in it to walk through it. But just in general terms, do you see anything in what he's asking that QGIS cannot do, or does anything ring any alarm bells for anybody of that's not possible?
I don't see any alarm bells. I'm not that good with raster imagery, so I think if I understood correctly from your reading, he wants to extract water bodies from raster imagery. From
DEMS, yeah, and I guess he wants to use satellite images. So I guess there's some. We could point him to the what is that lovely plugin that was just had a new
classification?
Yeah, the semi-automatic classification plugin. They just released version 7, I think it was, something, and that's really fantastic plugin for working with satellite imagery. So maybe have a look for that, the semi-automated classification plugin. And then I think we'll sort of defer the rest of that, Aloisio, to a separate dedicated session with Hans van der Kwast in the room. Get him Kurt Menke as well. So we'll jump on to the next question from Misha Silva. He wants to know some things about templates, project templates and map composer templates. And what is the recommended way to use each of these, and what settings and configurations does each handle? So does somebody have some experience with using templates? I'd like to maybe share your QGIS and show how you use them. Did somebody in the room write the template support?
No, I can go for a generic thing where answering when you use what. basically
pull up your QGIS if you can, and just so that
I don't have any templates around, so I don't use them much. I must be honest. I see them mainly at our clients, and what they mainly use them for is basically when they have a lot of projects that are very similar. They create their template project and then reuse that every time. Whereas the project templates, whereas the print templates, that's more. If you always want to create a map that has the same elements in it, that looks like a corporate kind of corporate design thing, you prepare one nice map and then you can reuse that. Sorry, you can reuse that in various projects. So I see Tim starting his QGIS, meaning that he probably has a template for his own house.
I don't think I do, but I was just going to show in the menus where you find it. I, of course, chose a project which is not going to open right now because let's take my hobby that I'm doing is making a map of Cape Town. So just to show in the menu, so you've got this new from template here, right? And you've also got, how do you make a template? Do you have to save it?
It's just save to as in the save to.
Okay.
It has the template save to,
Yes.
and you save as a template.
Okay, and then you can create a new project from that template.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there are not many options there. So just going back to his question, he's saying, what is the recommended way to use each of these? So I like Marco, don't really use them, so I don't have a good recommendation.
I think what I see is really like in the project templates, it's very few of them. Like you have your base project, and then you have your base maps in there that you always use. You have your structure in the browser. In the legend. That's how I see people using it, but I don't use them much myself. But yeah, usually I don't see more than one or two project templates at clients.
So yeah, so the use case is like I want this always to be my starting base layer for my project, and then I save it as a save to template. I call this.
Yeah, but I can add as a use case that I've seen also here is mostly to have your own coordinate system already defined, and also from templates. So print templates, the layout composer.
Already
Since you save your project with some layouts, you can have the common your company's logo and so on. You can have some already prepared layouts, so you can reuse them in another project.
Yeah. So it's really to bootstrap when you start a project, you don't start an empty project, you start from your own template that you have, and it takes away those 15 minutes at the beginning of setting up the way you want things. Obviously, the more complex, 15 minutes is if you're doing a print composer that has a map and a logo, that's it. But as soon as you start having nice designs in there, and maybe you have a portrait, a landscape, an A3, an A4, so all that kind of work, which is very repetitive. Nice logo, Tim. All the kind of work that is really repetitive at the beginning of a project, you can save it yourself by just doing it once and then creating a template where you always start from. And as Jorge said, it does take care of your projection. It takes care of maybe the scales that you want to work with. You always want to work in 1 to 100, 1 to 500, and 1 to 1000, because you most likely are working on a parcel level and not on a country level. So those kind of things can be really sped up by having your own project template. And the print template, pretty similar. That's to me, it's more like the landscape, the portrait, and then you reuse them in different projects if you're not using project templates. So it's really yep. Sorry.
No, just to note regarding this, Marco. So it's important to have a common folder for the objects that we use in the print templates. So another user will have the same link to the fixed images, for example, the company's logos and so on. If you create a template based on your local path, that might be a problem. So it's a good practice to have a common folder where you share these common objects. Also regarding templates, if you use authenticated layers, so if you use based layers like the earth and so on, it's not a problem. But if you use authenticated layers, it's a problem if you save the authentication with a layer on the template. So it's also a good practice to isolate the authentication on professional works. Maybe a good approach is to use services, and you connect to Postgres using service. So each user has his own service configuration with their own user ID and so on. And this works pretty well with the templates. So you save the templates with just the service name, and each user can reuse the template, and the authentication will be with his own username. So these two practices are good for templates. A common folder for static images and a good authentication strategy for the company.
Just to explain on the screen here, so that what George is talking about is when you set up your Postgres connection, instead of typing in your host and port and database and authentication things here, you can use the service file. Maybe we can find just the page. There's a Postgres page that explains it. No, not that one. Service PG is pg_service.conf, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're probably better off explaining it yourself. That page is very skinny.
And basically, what that is a text file that the forgotten file. It's a text file that you can specify like connection names and then the connection details, and then you take that name, Hans service, for example, and you put it into here, and then you leave out all the rest of the stuff, and then QGIS will go and read it from, or actually Postgres will read it from there, and then each person can have different connection credentials in their local service file. Can you use that with other database connection types? So I don't know, maybe that's very Postgres.
That's a Postgres thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, I know that's Postgres specific, but I mean, do they have something similar in SQL Server or something like that?
I don't know.
Okay, so those are good some good tips from George, and I have made a beautiful template now that I can use for everyone.
May I add something about authentication? Mm-hmm. Can you please open the authentication dialog again from the connection? Because I am not a great fan of using the PG service file, and there is an alternative for sharing connections and credentials in an organization, and is using the authentication configurations that you can see below. And you can actually create a project. Yes, exactly. You can, if you go to the ID, to the generated ID, you can also specify an ID yourself. I think it's the 7 alphabetic.
Don't let me type in the it's locked. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
You can type something inside, and you can specify your own organization name or something. I don't remember if it's constrained to certain characters or not, but anyway. So what you can do is use the authentication configuration as the connection for the server instead of specifying the credentials inside. And then you can just share your project with this authentication configuration, and then every user will have its own authentication configuration with its own credentials, but with the same name. So you basically share a name for an authentication configuration, and every user will have its own credentials corresponding to that authentication configuration. This way, when a user opens the project and tries to connect to the database, it will automatically use its own credentials. So this is another way, alternative of using a PG service file or any other scheme. And that works across providers. It's provider agnostic, and it works very well. And that's probably the best strategy, in my opinion, to share the connection and without sharing the credentials.
I guess the one downside of that is if you're putting your project on the QGIS server, is there a way to have QGIS server read the credentials from there? Or?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. The authentication database can be installed on a server, and there are a couple of environmental variables that you can specify to point your server to the correct location of the authentication database. And there is another environmental variable where you can specify the password file, with the file path that will contain the password to unlock the authentication database. Okay. So that works well on the server as well.
That's a good tip.
Very good, very good. So this is a way to make it work with all the providers instead of having it working with just a Postgres provider. Good, good.
Yes, basically, yes, that works across providers. But yeah, probably you will need different credentials for different connections with different providers, but it's up to you. Yes. Yeah, you can. The trick is that you can specify a name for the authentication configuration, something meaningful, more meaningful than a random string that is automatically generated. So, and the only thing that the other user must do is create their own configuration using the same string. Or you can even generate an authentication database and give it to them with their own credentials and their own password. So a system administrator can do that as well. There's no need for the users to do that. Yeah, we also wrote it. There was really a lot of nice things we've done in Boundless when I was working for them a few years ago, and there was a collection of scripts for the system administrators that can be run when the QGIS starts, and they automatically can take care of creating an authentication database with already the pre-configured set of authentication configurations for the company. So there are some strategies that can be very helpful when you want to deploy QGIS in large organizations. They are not very well documented, probably, and the example are probably got lost when the company was sold. So I don't know. But it's definitely possible.
Oh, that's really interesting and useful tip. Thank you very much. Maybe we can move on from there, unless there's any other specific template suggestions relating to layout templates. I don't know if anybody's used those much. That's available in here under the layout manager. Anybody?
Well, I can add to that if you have like something like print templates with you can also access them through QGIS server, and you can add the title, something, the labels inside the web client, write something like title or description of the project, put your layout. Select the layout from the web client, just select the area where you want your layout to be generated, and there's a PDF coming out of the QGIS server with that specific layout from the desktop, and with the labels that you maybe wanted to change, saying, I don't know, you write in the web client, okay, this is the title of my generates from the server side, which is great.
I think we can maybe
Hope
do
I was
a
clear
slide
enough.
demo if somebody's got a QGIS server running. I was going to just point to the LizMap demo maybe is a good place to do it.
Or you
Well,
can
I can
show
it
how to
live
do
if
it.
you want
Maybe.
on my. But I
Okay,
don't know,
you go,
I've
you
never
go ahead.
used. Let's see, how do I share? Let's see.
The items ID. Yeah.
Okay. Don't know how to share in Jitsi. Let's see.
Bottom left, near the hand.
Ah, okay. Share your screen. That's it. Screen 1. Well, I was work. Okay. Let's see. Well, basically, I can just show on the. But yeah. So this is a mirror of the desktop project, and let's say for wastewater companies, and let's say if I go here and I have multiple, I can choose my templates that I've already made on the desktop. So this is a simple one. This A4 landscape. I know I can make a title and say whatever title I want, and on description, whatever description, and just say print. Okay. Oh, I should have changed it, but it's in Romanian, so yeah. And so you can see everything that I've. I can show it here. It's the same as on desktop, but you can. I have also a more complex one, but it's not in production yet, like a technical. And I can just print another one, which is far more. And you can see here all, and it's automatic. You can automatically generate your layout with production. Yeah, and the whole layouts are done, are the same, are mirrored from the desktop. As you can see, it's the same. Oh, it's the same one. Where the hell is it? Here. No. Yeah. And that would be it, the demo. Yeah, and you can, of course, put attribute table or whatever there, and they got, so QGIS server rocks in this regard. That would be it.
Rocks in many regards.
Fantastic. Okay, I think let's move on to the next question, if that's all right. The next question comes from Reiko Matsuda Goodwin. And he says, is there any chance in the near future that we will reach the level where we can open multiple, at least 2 projects at the same time? So Marco and I were chatting before, trying to figure out, or who was I chatting with? But no, maybe it was Richard. We're chatting and trying to figure out, like, what would the use case of doing that be? So anybody want to take that one? First, can you come up with a use case for opening multiple projects at the same time, and then can we do it in QGIS?
Well, I guess the use case is to have I don't know, a production and a development project open side by side, or a public and an internal project open side by side. So you don't have to have 2 QGIS. I mean, currently what you're doing is opening 2 QGIS side by side, and it solves the issue. I guess no, we can even do copy and paste between QGISs currently now. So. I guess it's quicker to just change it. No, I don't know.
Well, maybe we should have mentioned that there's the embed project support already, which should, well, the embed layers, I guess, not an embedded project, right? Where you can embed parts of another project into your project. I could just see a lot of confusion. I mean, happening by having 2 projects open in the same time, unless we had them as like document tabs or something like. I think
yeah, that's how I would imagine those.
in like Word or LibreOffice, you can have two documents. Well, LibreOffice does them in two windows, but I think Word used to let you have them in two tabs or something within the same application main window. But I mean, basically, my response would normally be just open two QGIS windows.
Just open two QGIS side by side, yeah.
And if you're on Mac, you can still open multiple windows. I think you have to command click or something the icon to get a second one running. And I guess on Linux something similar as well.
You just open two. You just reopen.
Yeah, depends on which Linux desktop you have. Mine, yeah, okay. But
or if you just want base map support or something like that, you can put your projects through QGIS server and then just access them through WMS. Mm-hmm. That would also work.
Okay, and then another question he had was also, is there any plan to diversify the design of the scale? So I think he means the scale bar. Right now, there are very limited designs for the scale. And again, I think he means the scale bar. Maybe he hasn't seen in the last release, Niall did actually add a bunch. I think that was in 3.14 already that those came in, wasn't it? A bunch of new styles. Put up a screen share here quickly and I'll show you the changelog and you can see. So every release we create this fantastic work of art, which Charles, I know you're in the chat there somewhere listening. Thank you very much for all your hard work on this last release's changelog. So
I have it open already if you want.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead. It's on 3.14.
Yeah. So if you look in the changelog, you'll find all the new, well, not all, but a lot of the new things that come in. First, we get a nice acknowledgement for all those sustaining members that Marco was talking about before. You get some free publicity by landing up on the changelog. And then if you scroll down past all those, then you'll find just a very detailed list of all the cool new features that have come into that release. And they're categorized in groups. So if you want to find out things that relate to layouts, yeah, you'll see all the print layout stuff together. And then, so you'll see the scale bar related things here. I think there was more than that one.
Yeah, if you search scale bar, you're going to find 17.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. So, there you go. There's some examples there. So we've got these new styles being added in here. And I guess if you wanted more, Niall Dawson would be the person to reach out to and ask him if he could implement some more for you, either on a contract or I don't know if you can appeal to his goodwill, but I guess we're nicer to go to him and offer him some contract to do it. I don't think they take very long to add. And you see we've got a South African style, which is super nice. For us South Africans in the room. Good. We have some other questions. So those are the questions that came in through the form. And we had a few questions that came up in just in the chat, in this live stream chat. So maybe I'll just jump to some of those quickly. And those who are following the live stream, now's your chance to quickly throw a question or two into the list as well if you have something to ask. Just get to the one from German. Just find it quickly. So German Vargas asks, we're thinking of developing a plugin. Are there guidelines for development written somewhere? So maybe Ale or Marco, you can help with that. Just maybe some general thoughts and maybe also some documented things that would be good to see.
Yeah. So on the general thoughts is first make sure that nobody else already is working on on the same thing. And if somebody is, try to bundle efforts. There is nothing more frustrating than doing a whole plugin and then going for publish and discover that somebody did basically the exact same thing and just missing one feature that you could have improved the other tool. So really important, go talk to make a search, talk to the community. Maybe you'll discover other people that are interested in the same thing, and you can bundle effort. It's really always nice to try to reuse things that already exist and enhance those instead of creating new things or recreating things. Now, if indeed the plugin you're considering building has never been built before, and there is no other people that are already thinking about doing something like that, what I can suggest is either starting by using the plugin builder, which is going to generate you all the boilerplate code. Something I really want to do to plugin builder is to allow to create a minimalistic version. It does a lot of code, a lot of boilerplate code around that I always end up deleting with new projects. For that, Martin Dobiasz also has a repository with a minimalistic plugin, which is just the required things. So that's also a good start. And then the third thing that I suggest using is plugin CI. It's a plugin. We search for. Did you push the button that you forgot before?
Let's see. I think it's running. Let me just check in the chat room. If somebody in the chat room could just acknowledge whether they're seeing the stream again. Okay, thank you, Herman. Cesar says it's back again. So it's just for those who got disconnected. I think the stream has a 70-minute or 1 hour, 30-minute threshold or something, and then it disconnected.
No, 100 minutes. It disconnected at 100 somehow. Anyway.
Okay.
I'll answer again. I think the old part about checking with the community, so you make sure that you're not reinventing the wheel and that you're bundling energies. That was the main point. And then if you are starting building something, then what I suggest are basically three. There are 2-3 things that. I showed again the whole screen instead of only the application window here. Sure. So the one thing is using plugin builder. It's a plugin in QGIS itself that will generate you all the boilerplate code that is needed. For me, at times, it's a little bit verbose. It creates a little bit too much code that I end up deleting very often. Martin Dobiasz has also a minimalistic plugin skeleton, which is really all that is required. So this, at least you will need that to make a plugin. And then the third thing that I like using is a plugin that Denis, CI, QGIS plugin CI. This is a plugin that you can add as a package to your plugin, and basically it allows you to deploy to do continuous integration things on your plugin. I'm sure that we can get Denis to give an introduction to plugin CI maybe in the next QuadFest. It is pretty neatly because it allows you to integrate easily into Travis CI or into the GitHub workflows. So it's really cool to create like packages, new versions, and so on. So definitely, those are the my three things that I would say before you start building a plugin. Then once you are started building a plugin, obviously do not, I took it as a given, but use source code management. So use GitHub, GitLab, something. You will need anyway if you want to publish on the QGIS repo. You will need to give the source code. So start off from the beginning on, start off properly. It might seem like a little bit of steep learning curve at the beginning, but it's just the first half day. After that, it helps a lot. And after that, we do have plenty of documentation. qgis.org/pyqgis. So the first place you can go is the Python documentation, where we do have, maybe that's not the first place you would go. Maybe the first place would be the Python cookbook QGIS. Maybe the first place you would go is the PyQGIS developer cookbook, which has more high-level introduction to what things are, what is required, what are the kind of use case when, for example, use a script, when build a plugin, and it always has nice code, which thanks to Alessandro is all up to date now again. And here is more really use case based. So for example, you say, oh, I want to add a vector layer. You click on it and it gives you an example on how to deal with vector layers. Whereas the Python API documentation, it's more, you know what you want to do exactly, and you're just going to look up how a certain QGIS how a certain specific class, what does it expect as in the constructor. So for example, if I want to create a vector, I need to pass to maybe I could have taken a better, a more clear QGIS, a bit clearer class. So if I want to create a QGIS point, I need to pass a X and a Y to the constructor, and then I have the examples. So this is much more a reference of the API. It tells you exactly how everything in the API works, whereas the cookbook is much more problem solving based. And and the last point, more as a generic thing again, write tests. Even for plugins, you can write nice tests, and here is also where plugin CI can also help you. I don't know, maybe Alessandro, you have more inputs.
No, I don't. I think you said it all.
Great. Maybe we can try to rapid fire the last few questions, because we've got about 15 minutes left on the stream. So I'll do there are about 3 or 4 more questions. I will set a time limit, maybe to 4 or 5 minutes to each one, if that's all right. And then, so there's a question from Cesar Herrera asking, isn't there a possibility that a layer will be blocked for editing if it is being edited by another user? One possible option would be to have all the layers as Geopackage and copy the base QGIS/QGZ file and replicate it for each user. Although the issue of multi-editing would not be solved. I have no experience in PostGIS, so ideally I should be able to manage it within QGIS. Thank you for your time and work. I forgot to say that we're all working in a cooperative network. So he basically wants to know, what's the best practice for working with multiple users trying to edit the same data set? And I think we're all going to chant the same answer at the same time, right?
Please do not do that on Geopackage. You're going to run Postgres is the solution to that.
Postgres is the solution.
If you want to have something solid, do it in Postgres. nowhere
or
around.
SQL Server or one of the other proper databases.
Yeah, exactly. But even when we sometimes we publish geopackages through the web server, the key point there is going read-only, so that you're sure that QGIS doesn't think about editing geopackages, because as soon as you have multiple connection to a geopackage with the right head logs,
Bad things happen.
Magic things happen.
And if you want more details on that, go and search for well and things on the Geopackage on the QGIS mailing list, and there's some very long, complicated threads diving into all that stuff. But short version would be just use a proper database and
use a proper tool for
use Geopackage to send data to a client and tell them to load it in Postgres when they get it. Okay, so the next question is from Louis Villerm, and he said, one question on the implementation of point cloud data in QGIS, which is something that's busy happening in with the crowdfunding campaign from Lutra. He said, will it be possible to connect to a point cloud database? So that's, I guess, Postgres storing point cloud data or something like that. Does anybody know the answer to that?
Sorry, no.
We'd have to ask our friends at Lutra, and maybe that'd be another good topic to have a special interest session with Lutra, just showing off the 3D and point cloud stuff.
Gino's coming with an answer, maybe.
No, just for a simpler way to follow the stream. Just follow.
Okay. Welcome, Luigi. Okay, so we don't know the answer for that right now, but I think that would be a great idea to do it, and probably it's on their radar, if not on their roadmap. Then let's see who's the next questioner. So Kerry Leith asks, when I'm selling QGIS to new users, I always used to demonstrate the QGIS to GE plugin, QGIS to Google Earth, that projects the current scene to Google Earth. That plugin is no longer updated. Is there some structural reason for this? I guess it's going to be a tricky one for us to answer because we didn't write the plugin. But anybody know anything about that plugin? So maybe a good way to answer that would be to point into the plugins.qgis.org, and you can find the contact details for the plugin author and go and ask directly there. But there are also other tools that do similar things to the Google Earth one, right? There's QGIS to 3JS. What's the one called? And of course, sorry?
Yeah, it's called QGIS to 3JS, yeah.
And there's also QGIS 3D if you want to do it like in-house.
Is she referring to the G-Earth view plugin?
The QGIS to GE plugin. And sorry, Kerry, I don't know if I called you he, just I'm not sure if you're he or she.
But it's not there is no plugin called like that in the, so if she or he, it's referring to the GE view, Google Earth view plugin, that was not updated for QGIS 3. That would be a very simple reason why it's not available. And that is, she wouldn't, or the developer seems to have been developing the last version in 2016. Would need to contact the developer. That's the main reason is basically that it's not being ported to QGIS 3. The last update was in 2016, but I'm sure that Geodrix would be happy if somebody would do the work.
And maybe we could just point, maybe I'll just share my screen again. We can just point quickly to the plugin repository where you can go and find out these things. So if you go to plugins, well, you can't find out these things, but you can find out more information about a plugin. So What's it called? Google Earth.
It's called GE view. Wait.
GE is probably going to be a bit of a broad.
Wait, just give me a second. It's called G-Earth view.
Yeah, so if you go to the plugin repository and search for the name of your plugin, and you go into details, you can find out some more background information, including who the author and maintainer are, and that's their OSGeo ID. But you can also get a link to the code repository, which is the way that you should follow up with them. So if you go to the plugin repository, and then you go look at the issues, and just like you do in QGIS, where you go and search the issues first before making a new one. Have a look and see if somebody's already made an issue. And you see the last issues came in 2017, and then there was one 24th of July.
Yeah, and if you go to the pull request, you'll see that the developer is not really following up much anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they are talking about this plugin that is from probably they are talking about the Google Engine plugin that was developed by Google. It was involved Ujjwal Gandhi developing it when he was working for Google.
Okay.
Then they leave the team. I don't remember the plugin is located.
So Raymond in the chat is saying that he thinks it's the Send to Google Earth one, which is over here. It's QGIS 3 plugin, but again, and it's from NextGIS, which is a friend of the project. They've done a lot of contributions to QGIS. So you again just go and look in the issue tracker, and it seems like it's already been ported to QGIS 3, which is good. And either reach out to them with a ticket or get hold of the developer and send them an email. And that would be the way to find out why it's not doing what you expect it to do.
Yeah.
I think we probably need to wrap up there. Any last quick questions from the floor, from the chat channel? I don't see any more. Hopefully, I hope I didn't miss anybody out. Apologies if I did. I'm trying to watch, various different places where people are sending questions in at the same time. So hopefully I've managed to keep up to date with all the questions as they came in. I'd just like to thank everybody on the panel very much for your time, not only for joining this session, but for generally contributing to QGIS, the QGIS project. We all really appreciate everything you're doing, and keep on trucking. We'll see you maybe a little bit later at the Alessandro, do you want to just promote again your session that you're doing a little bit later, the time, maybe relative time from now would be good?
Yeah, sure. It should be, I think, 1 hour from now. And I will be talking about QGIS Server and what's new in QGIS Server, and something about the future, plans we have, things that may happen. And so please join us if you are interested in the server.
And the place they go to join?
Yeah, well, I think I didn't really think about it, but I think we can use the same Jitsi room that it's pinned over the chat. So it's meet.jitsi and /QHackFriday is also mentioned in the wiki, I believe.
I'll put the link in the bottom of the in the chat as well, the stream chat, so people can find it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we can use that room if you have better ideas. I'm not really an expert in streaming things. And
just note that room won't record automatically. So if you're wanting to record the session, there is an option in Jitsi that you can go and record it, I think, but it won't stream it, sorry. So if you do want to stream it, you've got to do a few more extra hoops.
Not much time to
just record it. Share it.
Yeah, just record it.
Okay.
All right, thank you everybody. Thanks to Marco for being our special guest this AMA, and I think if people like the format, we'll do the same thing again next time, as well as hopefully I can appeal to other people to come and do presentations like Alessandro is doing just now on special interest topics. This one is intended to be general, but it'd be great to have some people come in, especially users as well, not only developers and community members that are in the core. But if you're doing something interesting with QGIS, just set up a session and show us what you're doing. We'd love to see. And that's it. I think I'll close off this session now, and thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye. See you later.
Cheers, everyone. I've got to find how to stop streaming now.